Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Former Nice Guys podcast. Before we get started, I want to let you know that you can support the show by going over to jcramergraphics.com and picking up an item. We also do discounts for group orders, so if you're looking, your unit, your business, whatever, is looking to do a large purchase, reach out and I'll send you a discount code. That allows you to also let everyone order individually. That way you're not stuck like collecting money, making rosters for sizes, colors, and all the other stuff. You know, that's the worst part about it. I remember doing it when I was in. Also, we offer free shipping on orders of $75 or more. And as always, if you're looking for a custom design for your unit, then reach out and we can facilitate that as well. So again, support the show. Go over to jcramergraphics.com and let's get to it.
Like everyone called it mIRC. So back in the, are we recording right now?
We are recording, but I can leave this in or take it out. You just let me know.
No, you can take this part out. I mean, you can leave it in, but it's just funny because I met my husband at that point. It was called IRC chat back in the 90s. So when I got in theater my first time, and they're like mIRC chat, and I'm like, this is internet relay chat. What are you talking about? Like, people are doing stuff they're not supposed to do in there. Yeah. So it's really funny when people say mIRC chat, because I remember it in the 90s when I was using it to just talk to people or maybe do things that I shouldn't really have been trading information of sorts back in my civilian days. Before
I think that was still happening even in Afghanistan.
Yeah. So, but it, my college days, I was dabbling a little bit on the side. That
was pre-instant messenger.
It was pre-instant messenger. So it was pretty cool. So when people say mIRC chat, I laugh. I go, this technology has been around for a long time. But it was cool to use it in theater and use it to pass information on. So
yeah, I actually know. I don't remember the specific guy, but he was talking to some S2 girl. We were in like Marja or something like. I can't remember if it was Marja or Sangin, but I think it was Marja. So we were at some like outpost, and he was like messaging some S2 girl or some like I think it was a UAV pilot or whoever you communicate with the UAV, and they would have private chats, and they met up at some point, and I was like, you're freaking crazy, man. Like, that's, what are you, don't you, all those are monitored. Like, what are you doing? But yeah, it's pretty funny. That's old school technology. So let's get into the interview. But it's funny you bring that up, because I tell people right now, I'm like, with AI is like those early days of the internet, like you're talking about that IRC chat. I always bring up because I made one, but like the GeoCities websites, I'm like, that's the early days of the public usage of the internet. That's kind of where we're at with AI and technology, and that's where I think people ought to be, making sure that they're staying up to date with that kind of technology. And go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, how old are you?
I'm 41.
Okay, so 53, right? So I mean, computers, I tell my kids my first computer system was a Pong system, right? The two little,
I remember that Atari.
Boop. Yeah, Atari Pong. And I said when I used to chat with people online, I had a 300 baud modem, dial up. You can hear the sounds, and then chat with some people. I remember my mom one time was over my shoulders. Some guy was cursing at me like, go F off. And I was like, maybe, I don't know, 13, 14. And I looked at my mom and I'm like, can I respond to this, please?
That's hilarious. I like watching war games occasionally, with Matthew Broderick and stuff, because that's like old school. For people that haven't seen it, that's a classic, very early internet kind of movie.
Would you like to play a game?
Yeah, that's such a good movie. Yeah, those early days of the internet with the dial up, and if someone else would pick up a phone, it would kick you offline, and
yes,
you'd sit there and wait on photos to load. It's similar to being on the internet on ship. That's what I tell people when we're on ship. I'm like, this is how the internet back in the day felt, or 3G on your phone.
My first deployment on the ship, email would come in a bundle, and they actually had to have your name in the subject line, and then they would pass it to you. So wow. Everyone could see your email. So everyone could, like the person who was distributing that, like a mail carrier basically, could see your emails.
That's I've never heard of that.
Yes. So yeah, it was wild. I mean, my first deployment, my husband or my boyfriend at the time, we would send each other cassette tapes with how things were going, and like play like silly music and stuff like that, like love
What
songs.
year was this?
This was in 97,
Yeah.
1997. This is before I deployed 97, 98 to the Med, then to the Gulf, North Arabian Gulf. And so this was before they were starting to just female mod ships. So I was on a ship that was not female modded. So we were on a cruiser. We were up next to the captain's quarters, and they had taken an office and made it. There were 4 females on the boat, and that was us. And we just hung out there. So it was a pain in the butt. And
That's
so,
crazy. You got a nice little berthing area, though. Nobody gets that.
Yeah, it was actually dope. Like, 2 racks, 4 women. We had our own shower. So that was nice. So, yeah.
My first time on ship was 115 guys, 3 showers, and 2 toilets. And it was miserable.
Yeah.
We were packed in there. 3 high.
Yeah.
Some guys were 4 high. I was like, I never want to do this again.
My second long cruise deployment, I was on a frigate, and we shared bathrooms with the men because it wasn't a modded ship. And it was just, guys are disgusting. I mean,
come on, women are disgusting too. Let's not be sexist about it.
No, but like, how many times you gotta pee on the toilet seat? Your plumbing is designed to actually aim at a target and make it. And these guys would just pee everywhere.
Yeah.
Like, in the morning it's hard, and it's hard to do this, and it's hard to, I'm like, well,
that's an excuse.
I'm sure. Yeah, I'm like,
just know we are also disgusted by guys like that. Like, I don't want to go to a toilet that has piss on it. Like, ugh. Like, oh man, come on.
I mean, women can be equally as nasty because we go through cycles, and some women are just gross. But I was, yeah, I mean, on my second deployment, it was kind of fun. The guys would take showers in the morning, and I'd get up and I'd be like, hey, I got to use the bathroom, stay in the shower, and just use the bathroom. It was like Ally McBeal style, if you remember that show.
You got kind of used to it.
Yeah, you just got used to it. And, a lot of people like, oh, women on a boat. Like, these are, from my perspective, these are the brothers I don't want. So if I saw butt cheeks, or if I saw other body parts, I did not care. It wasn't like, ooh, this is awesome. It was like, ew, brother, ew, cover up, please. I can't with you.
What was the vibe like on that first deployment, though? If you're like the first 4 on a ship.
The vibe was actually not bad. The vibe was there were women on board. I didn't like the fact that as a woman, I would befriend guys. Like, most of my men are men. I mean, most of my friends are men. And so I don't like the fact that if you're a friend with a dude that we have to be sleeping together. It's really annoying. And so rumors start to spread. I was really good friends with one of the Navy lieutenants, and rumors were spreading because we would be behind closed doors that we were doing something inappropriate, and it wasn't. I mean, this guy was going through a divorce, separation. He was a hot mess, like emotionally. Mm-hmm. And we would just get friends. We would go out in town together. We would run together. We would do all these things. And so it was just like that wears on you more, like the scuttlebutt that goes around because people just want to gossip.
Yeah, gossip on ship is next level.
It is some next. It affected me,
especially after port calls. You run into people who are like, what are those two doing together? Like, hello, yeah. Funny that I've run into you here.
Yeah, it's just crazy. So my yeah, that was annoying. But I mean, guys on the ship were really, really good people. Like you were there to do a job, and if you did your job, there was no problem. I was part of the air detachment. So, ship's company doesn't like the air detachment anyway because we don't pull shift, we don't do duty, we don't do any of that stuff. So,
and you get extra pay for being out on the flight deck.
We do, and so we have our 12-hour crew rest. They're like, "You guys suck. You guys just suck our food and our time and our berthing, and you do nothing." And
that's how they feel about the Marines when we get on ship too. They're like, "Oh,
yeah," but I'm like, "Shut up. We bring mail. We bring packs. Get out of here."
We bring nothing. We bring nothing to the ship. When the Marines roll in with 1,000 people on an LHD, you just see the sailors like, ugh. Now the chow lines just became, an hour long and everything. Gym times are cut. It was a mutual hate.
It's okay. It's a
So,
love-hate relationship.
what made you decide to join the military? Like, what was that driving force, and why did you choose your branch?
I chose the Navy was my first choice because at the time I wanted to be an astronaut when I was a kid. At the time when I looked at what type of resume astronauts had, most of them were naval aviators.
Hmm.
So that was my ultimate decision. It was between the Navy and the Air Force. Navy flew on boats, which were more difficult, more challenging, and I can attest to that, as opposed to a long runway. The Navy is more, as sister services, we always make fun of each other, right? So the Air Force it's a little more lax in the way they deal with things. The Navy is very, as a Marine Corps person, we go out to sea, we do business. You could see it when I went to Officer Candidate School in '94. It was funny because we had a competition with the Air Force, OTS. So we were OCS, and the drill instructors, Marine Corps trained, they were like, we're going to prepare for this. And when I mean prepare, like every morning at 5 o'clock after we did our 2-mile run, we were doing 3-legged race and other stupid events to go against the Air Force because
We will
we
not
didn't.
lose.
We will, yes, we will not lose. And then when the Air Force rolled in for this competition, they were in our chow hall, and we were doing our like walking up, squaring corners, slapping trays to get our food, doing our whole thing, getting in. And the Air Force was just kind of bebopping in, talking to each other, having fun, getting more milk, doing all this stuff. And drill instructors were like, you nasty, get on the floor, push-ups. Like, that's how, like, I like that. I like that discipline aspect. And don't get me wrong, I love the Air Force, but it's a different animal.
Mm-hmm.
And I loved it in my later years when family life and all that. The Air Force is a little bit more amenable and understanding, where the Navy's like, get on the boat, go fly, go do whatever you need to do. So I liked the Navy, and that was my first choice. So I was glad I got to do it. I almost joined the Army in the warrant officer program, but at the last minute, I went out to San Diego to talk to a recruiter that said, if you pass the test, we'll get you into the Navy with a flying billet.
That's awesome. I've heard the
Yeah.
warrant officer program is a good program also. I've also heard it's
Oh,
not. I've heard other people say it's almost a scam, like it takes forever to actually become a pilot, or that a lot of people don't become pilots. I don't know. I've heard good and bad, so look into it. But I mean,
I wanted to fly jets, but I was also open to flying helicopters, which I did both at the end of my career. I think the warrant officer program would have been it. It looks like a great program, but you're wedged into just flying helicopters.
mm-hmm.
And I'm that type of person that don't put a label on me. I want to be as versatile as possible, especially as an astronaut, because there's things that you may not see, for the first time, and you want to be able to bring your skill sets to the table. So I felt that flying helicopters, I loved it. Great mission, but to be able to fly jets, to be able to fly a fixed wing aircraft with props, to learn those different things was something that I enjoyed. I enjoyed more.
Yeah, no, I understand that flying. I mean, what an awesome opportunity to fly anything, really. And get
Yeah.
paid to do it. Is it so? You wanted to be an astronaut, and you looked into? Did you do R? You said you did ROTC, right? Or was that competition you were talking about was in OCS?
That was an OCS. So by the way, we totally smoked them. So
Just for the record.
just for the record, the OTS people that came, they got smoked. I did ROTC in my at my university for 2 years. I did Air Force ROTC for 2 years and found that was not for me. So it kind of solidified like, hey, I want to go Navy when I'm done.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And then you joined. You got that first ship assignment. Were you pretty excited? Were you nervous? How'd you feel? Well, let's talk about actually before the first ship assignment. How was the training? How was the flight school? How was getting assigned to an aircraft?
So flight training is typically about 2 years, a little bit more, a little bit less, depending. I did it probably at the 2-year mark. Flight school, you go through so I could talk Navy and Air Force, so I'm talking specifically Navy. Navy flight training, you go through primary training. You fly, at that time was the T-34, now it's the T-6 aircraft. You do that for the first part. You do everything from basic flying to basic instruments to basic formation flying. And then once you finish that, it takes about a year, 6 months, 6 months to a year. And then you select out of that. So whatever group is up for selection, you compete for either jets, helos, or props, or occasionally like to see, flying admirals around. That came every once in a while. So I selected out of my class. I did well, but I still got helicopters. Most pilots in the Navy are helicopter pilots. That's what they need. Not as many jet pilots, so it's okay. And then from there, I was in Corpus Christi, Texas, and then I went back to Pensacola for training in helicopters at Millington. So I started out my flight training in Corpus Christi. You could go to Pensacola, but I ended up going to Corpus Christi. The only reason why I wanted to do that is because it was easier flying to do what we call course rules. So to get out into an area, most students will fail, their flights because of course rules. They'll do something stupid like, hey, at the Red Barn, you didn't turn left. Well, I couldn't see the Red Barn because it was cloudy out. Well, too bad, you failed. In Texas, it's like you fly over the water, you see this island, you turn. That's how
pretty straightforward, huh?
It's pretty straightforward. You get in your area, you call, and then you proceed to do whatever. So that's my recommendation. Course rules can be a killer for some students.
Before you've selected to a platform, when you're doing your initial flight training, you earn your private pilot's license. Isn't that correct?
You don't. So I went into the Navy with 0 flight time.
Okay.
Some people come in with pick a rating. Some people have their private license. Some people have their commercial. Some people came from the airlines. They're young enough, they go in. So I had 0 flight time.
Okay.
When I was done with my primary training, I still didn't have anything until I finished advanced training, which was in helicopters. Then I got my private pilot's license in single engine fixed wing, single engine rotary wing. I got my commercial license in both, and I got my instrument rating. So you come out with about 4 ratings in that.
Which one did those initial licensing? Which one did you find to be more difficult, the fixed wing or rotary wing?
I think it's apples and oranges. As a person that has flown jets, helos, and props, once you fly fixed wing, if you go helicopters, you could go back to fixed wing. There's nothing cosmic about it. I actually think flying helicopters helped me to getting to the U-2. The reason why is because the helicopters are stick and rudder. The U-2, believe it or not, it's a yoke, but it's stick and rudder flying. The U-2 high altitude aircraft suffers from adverse yaw effects. You actually have to do coordinated turns. Most jet pilots fly with their feet off the rudder pedals because of the sensitivity. And that's kind of a downside for them flying the U-2. They find it more difficult. In general, I'm generalizing. So to me, it is easy to fly fixed wing. It's easy to fly helicopters. It's just a different mindset. Helicopters, you have a cyclic collective. It's once you learn the differences, it's really not very cosmic. That's what I tell people.
It's funny because non-pilots are just like amazed. You're flying both like, yeah, whatever. It's whatever. We're all over here like, wow. That's pretty wild that you can do. You're flying all these different things. It's what an incredible skill and like hobby. I knew some Marine pilots, some both fixed wing and rotary wing guys that would join almost like you would with a rental car agency, like a group at a airport where you can rent planes all the time. They would just like, yeah, this weekend we're going to fly to wherever. And I'm like, man, what a good skill to have, just to be able to pick up and like rent a plane for the weekend and go somewhere.
It is. So most people, I always tell people, you give me any type of mechanical device, I'll get in and figure it out. Like it becomes intuitive. It's just really, it's really fun. So I'm sorry, I got a cat over here being a menace right now.
No, you're good. I don't hear it. When
Yeah, so
you
that's what I was looking.
when you're flying helos now, let's talk about, because there's some rough seas out there for the Navy. What's it like landing a helo, in some rough waters, trying to you're basically doing a controlled fall there at the end, making sure you let go at the right time. It seems like.
Yeah, so for the so I flew H-60s, uh, Seahawk helicopters. So SH-60 Bravos was what I flew. Um, rough seas, sea states of 4 and 5. It's a big challenge. So the big thing there, when you're flying to the back of the boat has what's called a HARS bar. So the bar, it's a straight bar across with a lighting system that tells you if you're on glide path, below glide path, above glide path. So in that situation, you could see from a distance that the ship is doing all this. You can see the back, it's doing all this, but the HARS bar is pretty stable. So that's what I don't want to say fixate on, because you don't fixate on anything, but that's part of your scan as you're flying the aircraft. So when you see all the sea, the sea moving and everything, you're like, don't look at that. Don't look at that. Just focus on your instruments inside the cockpit, the horizon, the HARS bar on the ship. And as you get closer, in sea states of 4 or 5, the 60 has what's called there's a RAS system on there, and the RAS system is a system that traverses the aircraft in and out of the hangar, but it's also used to help assist the H-60 to land in rough sea states. The H-60 has a probe, and in that probe is a cable that comes out, and the cable can be attached to the ship's RAS system and actually help assist pulling the helicopter down straight
Oh
into
wow.
the trap, and then the RAS system closes around the probe, and then you use that to move the aircraft inside and out. So when you're in those high sea states, you come in and you hover, and you're getting calls from, there's a guy in what's called the LSO shack, landing safety officer shack, who's another pilot who's watching how you're flying in, and they're monitoring the safety of the operations. So as you're coming in, you go to a hover. I don't remember how many feet the hover is. You got two fire guys who are on fire watch come out. They're called the hookup men. They get the cable from the ship. You release the cable from your helicopter. You have an air crewman in the back that says the cable is touched down, is grounded out. The hookup men come out. In a rough sea state, there's two of them holding on for dear life. They get like paid an extra $100 a month. It's they don't get paid enough. Anyway, they come out, they hook up the cable, and then they try to move away as we reel the cable back in the aircraft and get some tension on the helicopter to the ship. And so we maneuver over the platform. The LSO can either give us calls how we look,
Oh, I think I lost you.
mention it.
I lost you for a second.
Oh,
You said the LSO could give you calls on how you look, and
okay.
then
Yeah, the LSO could give you calls how you look. The air crewman will be looking down, and then when you're ready to land, you'll tell the LSO put on tension, because they can put on tension of the cable from 2,000 to 4,000 pounds of force. At that point, the hookup men are gone because they don't need to be around for any of this, and then you can land right in the trap. And so when you're in, the LSO closes the trap around the aircraft and secures it to the flight deck.
sounds like a party.
It is a party. It's good. So we do traps also. We could do it without a cable if it's a good sea state, but in rough sea states, it's recommended. We don't have to do it. So it just depends, because you have two hookup men coming out. It could be really dangerous for them. So
Yeah, for sure.
yeah, yeah, they do a great job. So um, that's what it's like from a pilot perspective. It's exhilarating for me, like coming in to fly, especially at nighttime. You're looking at the HARS bar. You can get easily disoriented. Like everyone's a little bit on edge, but it's exciting. Like I love that stuff.
Yeah, in the back, I'm just like, man, they know what they're doing, so I'm just gonna ride this out. Here we go. It's like, especially we would take off from the Osprey, and the way they would like take off on the Osprey on the LHD would like lift up, and then it would like get a few feet off the deck, and then like kind of fall to the left or fall one direction, and then take off. And you're just sitting there, and you feel it lift up, and all of a sudden you're like, ah! I don't know. I never liked it.
You didn't like it? One time I was on a 46. I had to go. My first deployment, I was in a cruiser, and I was on the GW for some reason. I don't know if it was medical or something. And I had to take a CH-46 back, and I was sitting back there going, "This aircraft is terrible."
That was like, the workhorse for a long time.
I know it was, but like everything was leaking. You couldn't see anything. As a pilot, I was like,
that's how you knew it was working, though. If it was leaking oil, it's still we're good to go.
This is true. It was definitely leaking. So I was like, okay, there's enough oil in the system. Great. But it was just so I like my H-60 much better. But in the Marine Corps, when you were a pilot, they would call it CH-46 God's aircraft. So they decided to fly it.
The 60 is a smooth flight. I enjoyed flying in the 60. Yes. I enjoyed flying in the Huey also. Those were probably my two favorite, flying in one of those two. 53s, I had an incident on one where they lost like hydraulics to like stabilize the stick, so the aircraft was like going all over the place, and we were flying over water. And that time, I was always cool with flying up until that point, and then after that, I always had that in the back of my mind because we were flying over water, and for whatever reason, this is the only time it ever happened. The crew chiefs didn't give us the bottles, the vest.
Oh, the He's bottle.
Yeah, the vest and the bottles, and we were all like, "Cool, we don't have to wear those stupid things." And then as soon as we got feet wet over leaving San Clemente Island, they lost like some hydraulics, and the helicopter was just all over the place. And the pilot didn't turn around. Like we literally had just gone feet wet. He didn't turn around. He kept going and did an emergency landing at Camp Pendleton. So he spent 30 minutes over water, and none of us had oxygen bottles or anything on. I was like, we got off that aircraft, and this is when I was with Anglico, and one of my firepower control team leaders was a 53 pilot who was riding in the back. And when we landed, he got out and started chewing the pilot out. And then he's like, "I'm calling the air wing to let them know what you just did." Like, this was crazy.
Did that guy get... Okay, so
I didn't
before I judge someone, was there a reason why he decided to fly for 30 minutes with a hydraulic problem?
I have no idea. I know when we landed, I was sitting. I just remember being like, "Thank God." And I remember flying the whole way. I'm watching the crew chief, and I'm like, if this dude freaks out, I'm gonna freak out because this is the crew chief. Like, if he starts sweating. And then when we landed, one of my Marines was like, "Staff Sergeant, I was watching you," and I was like, if Staff Sergeant freaks out, I'm gonna freak out. And I was like, there's a lesson to be learned here. Everybody be cool.
Everybody. It's just like when there's turbulence in a commercial airplane. Look at the flight attendants. If they're just sitting and talking and on their phone, don't worry about it. Like, some people just totally freak out. And I'm like, dude, it's turbulence. It's cool. It's cool. Stop screaming. It's all right. But you're right. I don't know why the pilot would take off, have a hydraulic problem, and not come back. That seems counterintuitive. Yeah, it seems pretty basic. Was there a reason? Like, I always try to give my peers, like, what was going through your mind? Let's play this back again. Oh, I'm sure he got in a lot of trouble because that doesn't make sense. Like, if there's a problem on takeoff, come back, be done.
Yeah.
Or maybe he knew it was going to happen. I don't know.
We just happen to have a 53 pilot in our team. So he was explaining afterwards, he's like, he can still fly it. It's still flyable, but it takes away any kind of like assistance. So you're fighting the stick the whole time rather than the hydraulics assisting you and keeping a smooth flight. So he's like, he fought it the whole way over here for no reason. And he was pretty upset about it. He said he was going to contact the air wing and let them know about the incident. He's like, there was no reason, because it was a 53 with like 20 of us on the back of it. You had like 20 people in the back. And he's like, there was no reason for him to do that. It was a weekend. I think it was like a Friday, so everybody wanted to get home.
Get
kind of
home
deal.
itis.
Yeah. So
Get home itis kills more people than anything. I mean, you look at it, but in the 53, I don't know how 53 works. Like in a U-2, you lose hydraulics. Yeah, that's a bad day. Like you're getting back home and conserving energy because to fight that aircraft, if for some reason hydraulics fails and the pitch of the nose is more than 1 degrees nose down, you are ejecting. There is no doubt about it. You cannot pull back on the force required to do what you need to do. Yeah, you could be a weightlifter, you could do whatever. You cannot maintain that to keep 2 feet off the ground to stall the aircraft.
it's a fickle beast.
It is. It is. She will kill you very quickly, as slow as she goes.
You
Speaking of, hold
you,
on
me-
1 second.
you mentioned the oh, look at that. What's your cat's name?
This is Mojo. He's like over here.
He's wondering what you're doing. Why you're not paying attention?
Well, he's very selfish. Every time I do a podcast, he wants in.
He makes an appearance.
He makes an appearance every time. So there are brothers. He is one of two. The other one's sitting there looking at me. Mojo and Mystic. So Mojo loves to be loved, and Mystic wants nothing to do with me. They are both 14 years old.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's pretty.
You know, man.
Is that standard for a cat? I'm more of a dog person.
My last cat lasted to 16. So yeah.
That's good.
Yeah.
I knew someone that had a cat that was like 21, and it looked rough. It looked rough.
Yeah. That's like 115.
Yeah. My last dog, he lived to be 18, and he was a lab beagle mix, and he looked really bad at the end. I probably should have had him put down a little sooner, or I didn't have him put down. He passed away naturally, but I probably should have had him put down. But it's just like when you've had him that long, it's like, man,
Yeah.
It's tough. Anyways, I don't want to get into that. Did you ever have like in flying?
The conversation went dark very quickly.
Dun, dun, dun. When you're flying, so let's talk about you're flying helos. How long did you fly helos, and when did you make a change to a different platform?
Yeah, so I flew helos from 96 after I got winged to 2004. So I flew SH-60 Bravos, East Coast lamps. I was stationed at Naval Station Mayport for 4 years flying.
And are you generally with the 60s? Are you generally like kind of general aviation? I know there's a lot of different jobs that 60s can do: counter submarine, close air support, like all these different things. Are you expected to do a good deal of those? A specific mission?
Right. So what's great about the 60, so SH-60 is anti-submarine. So that was our primary mission: anti-submarine warfare, anti-surface warfare, because we were able to carry, at that time, we had a Penguin missile, Hellfire missile, we had FLIR system, we could do MVGs, we could do search and rescue like every other helicopter. So we were always, like every day was a different type of mission. So it was a very versatile platform. You just didn't know what was happening. So my first deployment on the H-60, we were the shotgun cruiser for the carrier battle group, the GW battle group. So most of the times we were out, our missions were doing a little bit of sub hunting, but a lot of just PAX transfers, surface reconnaissance, looking at surface ships that were around, especially when we were in the North Arabian Gulf.
Mm-hmm.
So we did some KAA combat missions. We would go look for smugglers. We would do all those things and report them back. So, yeah, it was pretty interesting. And then my second deployment was a Unitas in South America. So in the beginning, we would do maybe a little bit of drug ops, but we would work with the other countries doing submarine operations. And then we did some other classified stuff.
Was it interesting going from all water-based, operations, basically all water-based, to working in South America and doing more land-based stuff when you're doing it drug ops, or were you doing counter like subs or something like that?
So yeah, so my second deployment going into South America, a lot of port visits. So we were working with other South American countries, doing a lot of training events. It was basically like I don't want to say a boondoggle, but Unitas trips. I mean, every 2 days we were pulling into a port.
Oh
So
man, how
yeah, so
amazing would that be?
it is, but it's not because it's very disruptive because you can't get on a good flight schedule cycle. Like you go out for like 3 days and then you pull in Cartagena. Then you go out for, you stay there for 2 days. Then you go out for 4 days and you go to like Bogota. I don't know, wherever. And then you keep going.
Everyone's screaming at you. They're like, no, what are you talking about? More port calls.
Yeah, but I like the fact my first deployment, we were out for 30 days and we pull into port for 3 or 2 days.
Yeah.
And so if I'm working, I want to do flight ops. I want to have a good schedule. Mistakes happen when you're just going up and down in schedule. Don't get me wrong. Look, South America is beautiful. I got to see a lot of things. I didn't understand that. I made a lot of realizations when I was in South America. Like, I understood the concept of poverty. I understood that America is a pretty daggone good country to live in and to protect. I met some good people in other countries that are trying to do the same thing. I got to go snowboarding the first time in the Andes Mountains.
Oh wow!
I got to win my first. We were in Argentina. I won my first dance contest. That's another story for another day. In a port visit, like it was a great night. Like I got to do a lot of things and experience and have this different perspective. And so, but it was still very choppy in flying. Like if I want to fly and do the mission, let's go.
You're there to fly.
Let's do the mission. Yeah, I'm there to fly. Like
no, I get that. I understand
Yeah.
that. But as someone that's not flying and doing less cool jobs on ship, it's like, thank God we're getting off this thing. Ugh. I remember I was so lucky. We were in, well, first off, I want to say what you described, the experience of understanding poverty for the first time. I think
Yes.
a lot of people in the military come back with that when they go to some of these other countries. Especially because when you're on these U deployments and you're working with other countries, a lot of times, they'll have a opportunity to like go volunteer at a local orphanage. You go down and play soccer with them, or you go down and play basketball with them, or something like that. They have like a little group, a little detachment that goes out, or they do some kind of community service in whatever country that they're visiting. And I think once you go to some of these countries and you see the level of poverty like you're talking about, that's why you come back here and you're like, you know what, this isn't that bad.
No.
Let's everybody chill out and like let's understand we're in 2025 and I can literally have my phone do almost anything, bring me food, make money, like entertain me. We're living in the future and we don't realize it. And I think a lot of people don't appreciate that. And it's crazy.
Yes. So it's very interesting that even now, 2025, regardless of how you feel about the political environment, right? We still got it. We still have it pretty good. And people may, disagree or agree with that. But I mean, to see children divvy up food that someone is just eating off of, like brings that home. Like, holy cow. Like,
yeah,
it's just kind of, it's eye opening. And when you come back here, especially when you transition out of the military to civilian life and you see the things that people truly complain about, and in the back of your mind, you're like, you have no idea. You have no idea what you're complaining about, something that's a non-issue as opposed to like choices for survival.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's on a different level. And I think that's one of the things when I transitioned from the military to civilian life, it was one of those things that was hard to get over because people would talk about things that I could care less about. Like I was like,
yeah.
And it was like their whole world. And I'm like, I feel like a foreigner on my own soil. Like it's just like, this is weird.
Like this is what you're worried about. If this is your biggest concern, we're in a pretty good spot right now.
Yeah, like your kid didn't make the comp soccer team. Okay,
yeah,
he get practice.
This is not to like and validate people that are struggling, because there are people in the
Yes.
U.S. that have issues also. Obviously, we're a country of 330 million people or more, 370 million
Absolutely.
maybe. I don't even remember. But for the vast majority of people, it's like you're talking about how oppressed you are on your iPhone. You know what I'm saying? Like, leave me, like, stop. You're doing all right. You know, get it together. I remember
Yes.
being in Djibouti and them telling us, like, don't hand out any water bottles, because if you do, you're going to be quickly surrounded by people that want water or want food or whatever. Like, you know, that's like people don't understand in some of these countries, it's an operation to bring food or medical supplies to them, because you can't just show up and start handing out food, because it becomes a riot almost. It has to have like
Right.
it's a mission. You know what I'm saying? It's like, and that's because of how desperate they are for stuff. But yeah, so that's an interesting thing.
Yeah, so in the beginning when we were in South America, like if you had money, kids would come at you, and then you give one, it was like a whole bunch of pigeons, like with flock.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. So, and like I'm from New York City, so when someone's asking me for money as a New Yorker, I think we're very easy to dismiss people, because
That's what the
it's
city
like,
does to you.
yes, I'm sorry. It's like New York City, there is some there's some savagery in the way, like if you're on the train and people are like coming by, like, I need money, like no one pays attention to them. And so I did that at first, but then when I realized like the significance of giving a child some coins that I don't want to say meant nothing to me, but meant so much more to them than it did to me, I was like, I didn't care. Like, let the pigeons.
I don't know anybody that gave out actual money like that, even like change, but we used to give out candy a lot. You know, used to give out candy and stuff to like when we were in Afghanistan and everything like that. Or the kids wanted pens to write on stuff and things like that. So, but again, you'd have to, like, you know, if there's like a one or two kids, you could maybe give out something. But if you give out stuff to a group, then it becomes an issue, and then you'll see kids fight other kids to get what they got, and you know, it goes downhill quickly. But yeah, the sound of port calls all the time. I mean, I remember we were on the Mew, and we were doing an exercise. I was ashore for an exercise in Kuwait. We were working with the Royal Marines and with the Kuwaitis. And while we were ashore, our ship got tasked with something to do some strikes or something like that. I don't remember what it was, and got pulled. So we were just kind of stuck in Kuwait, which was great. It was like, yes, the ship is gone, you know. And we were ashore doing like close air support training with like Apaches and 60s and stuff quite a bit. And it was a good time out there if you've ever been Udari Range, OP-10. And it was a good time compared to the ship. But when we went back on ship a couple months later, no one had been off ship or had a port call in long enough where they were getting a beer day on ship. And everyone was like, we just came from the OP where we're out doing close air support. So we're all like sun-baked and like super dark, you know, like tan and everything. You get on ship and everyone is like super pasty. You can like see their organs through their translucent skin because they've been on, you know, they haven't gotten any sun.
Alabaster skin, and at
You're
nighttime.
Like, they were all
lighthouses.
so mad. They're like, half your Marines are going on chow duty. I'm like, dude, we were working. First off, we weren't out on vacation just because we got a tan.
I was so mad at my first deployment because every time we were a day or two short of a beer day, they pull in the port. And I'm like, hey, I want my beer day. Like, let's go. I want my beer day. They didn't give it to us. I was so angry.
They did a beer day, and then the first port after that was Oman, which is a big sand pit. It was horrible. There was like a dude that brought out Domino pizzas and sold them Dominoes out of the back of his car. And someone brought a camel out to do camel rides. But I was like, man, this is horrible. It was crazy.
Oh man.
That's that ship life though.
I love ship life. It makes you tough, and it makes you appreciate being back on shore.
Yeah.
Except if you're in Oman. I mean, we would pull into port into not the UAE, into Dubai. Oh, Jebel Ali. What do they call it nowadays?
I'm not sure.
Yeah, so we would pull into port there,
Isn't
and
that Saudi Arabia?
no, no, not so. I have
You're talking
not
about
been to
so you're talking about Dubai?
yeah, Dubai area.
Okay. Yeah, we must have, because I remember going ashore there. I don't remember why we were there, but yeah, we must have also, because I went. It's all
I
malls.
Yeah, so I just remember there were a lot of shipping containers, a lot of vendors that would give you like fake Nike stuff if you wanted to buy all that stuff.
Oh yeah,
Not that I not that I ever bought anything like that being a young
I got a sick
Navy
watch. I got a sick
lieutenant.
watch in Hong Kong. I was in some shady
Does it
apartment,
still
like
work?
it was like one of those apartments where you have to knock and they peek through the door before they let you in. So I got from one of the street. It does work. It's actually really nice. It's actually a really nice watch, but it's like a Patek or Patek, however you say it. So it's like in reality, it'd be like a $20,000 watch. Totally fake, but it works and it looks nice.
Yeah, yeah, Dubai was like that at first. So I'm sure it's changed. I was impressed that they had like KFC there and all that because you come from America, you think you have everything, and you're like, oh, Baskin Robbins is here. Awesome.
Yeah.
So
Anything that's not like pork, they have. KFC's
yeah,
huge overseas, especially in like Asia too.
yes,
Um,
absolutely.
it tasted weird when we were in. We went to Malaysia and had it there, and they cook it in palm oil rather
Mm,
than like whatever we use here, and it
yes.
just that palm oil taste. I could not get over it. I was like, I don't know how you guys do this. Like this is kind of wretched. I'm not gonna lie. I just couldn't do it. I was excited. I was like, oh, KFC, cool, something I know, and then you get it and you're like, oh, this tastes crazy.
No, yeah. Yeah, you gotta consider the source. South America had a lot of good food. I'm not sure the source, but it was good. I didn't get sick, so I was like,
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean, that was kind of the worst part, not the worst part, but that was one of the bad things is when you go out with someone that doesn't want to try anything local. It's like, I get it, like maybe you don't like seafood, I don't like seafood, maybe you don't like whatever, name your thing, but you can find like a beef or chicken or whatever option that is a local cuisine,
or
try something different.
a local animal. Just try it. It's
Or
chopped meat.
local
It's good.
animal. I ate some stuff in Afghanistan. I wasn't sure what it was. I was like, this is probably maybe a goat, I think. I'm not sure. But, it was good.
Yeah, it's good.
With the
I think
rice, it was really good.
yeah, I believe I have eaten dog maybe once or twice unknowingly, but it was good.
You think so?
I think so.
Where at?
I was in Ecuador, so anything's possible.
Wow, they do that in Ecuador?
Yeah, there's a lot of dogs. From my recollection, a lot of dogs in Ecuador. A lot of
Wow.
free range dogs in Ecuador.
I knew a guy who was in Vietnam, and he was like, dude, they had like a pen, like almost like you'd have for cattle, that they had
Yes,
dogs that they bred for meat. And I was
yes.
like,
Well,
and he's like, it was pretty good. I was like, all right.
yeah. I mean, I didn't. They said it was beef. Not sure if it was, but
You're like,
whatever.
I never seen beef look like that. What the hell?
It's ground meat.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
dog burger. Man,
Eh,
it's again like we eat stuff that they would never eat in other countries, so it's a culture thing. It's like again like we were talking about before. It's like an eye-opening experience to get to see different cultures. Especially what's cool for you is you saw probably all the different multiple different cultures in one region. So in South
yes.
America, all these different countries, it's easy to think like South America, like they all think alike or they all have a
No.
similar culture, and that's not true.
I found I of the countries that we saw, so we went to Colombia, which was beautiful. Food was great. Ecuador, Panama, before we turned the locks over to the Panamanians. I was very impressed by I didn't know Panama had was so Afrocentric. So a lot of Africans had come there. So I'll be honest with you, when I got there and I saw people my complexion, I was like, I'm home. Like I was excited about it because I wasn't in Europe and I was shocked, but I was pleasantly surprised. And so it was very neat to see that. And it was interesting to see um, as you went further south to Chile, um, just I guess the nativeness. You would see people who are Hispanic, but you would see there was this blend of native South Americans that you would see. I can't even explain it. Maybe more like slightly Asian-esque in ways. So the population changed, and as we went towards the Straits of Magellan, you would see. I don't even want to say, yeah, I don't. There were not Eskimos, but they were just native to the region and beautiful people. And then you'd hit Argentina, very European centric, and then you would hit, Brazil, and then it was just another flavor. So it was just, I can't. It was very eclectic, and it was just a beautiful thing to see. So
Yeah.
I loved it a lot. Yes.
That's awesome. I think a lot of people don't realize that the United States is similar. You go to different
Yes.
states, there's so many different cultures and stuff like that. I remember
Yes.
being in college after I got out, and one of the girls, I was in a French class or a Italian class, and this girl in my class was like, "Oh, the U.S. has no culture." And I'm like, "What are you talking about?" I'm like, "Quit listening to haters online." I'm like, "Look at the South, look at everything." I mean, the culture in the United States is so vast, from the blues, comedy, the food, how we take other cultures and blend them and make, our own unique like types of food and things, and the way people speak, the way people act. Like, it's such a unfortunate thing. That's what people think.
Yeah, so I mean, you go down south and you see everything from like Creole to like things that are influenced. You go to Florida, you see culture like Miami that's very, Latino culture. You go to New Mexico, you see like a lot of Mexican culture infused into it. California, up and down, it's just different. You go to the Midwest, it's different. So yeah, and sometimes you'll be surprised. Like you go to Minnesota, I think um, there are a lot of Africans in that region that have migrated over there. Or I went somewhere to the Twin Cities and there's a huge Hmong population. And I was like, wow. So I went to have some food, like to these vendors that like eat food that's just authentic. Oh, so good. Anyway, yeah.
Yeah, that's
People who
good food everywhere.
Yeah, people who come from other countries think we're not uniform across. There's just Remember, we're a melting pot in America, even though we fight a lot. It
And
seems
we're
like lately.
huge.
We're huge.
The country is so massive. People, we would be individual countries in Europe. Each state would be individual countries in Europe.
Yes.
It's such a huge change. Like there's mountain culture in Colorado. I lived growing up. I lived in Tennessee and Indiana both, and so I got a little flavor of both that Midwest and Southern culture. And it's just like such a great. And I lived in the Marines. I lived in North Carolina, and then I lived in California, and then I stayed out here. And so just experiencing all the different places, I'm very lucky. I really appreciate that I got to do something like that. I really encourage other people, that vacation to one place every year, which is cool. It's got its benefits. Maybe occasionally, drive somewhere they've never been, see something they've never seen, kind of deal. So.
Yeah, I would say if you want to change your perspective, change your location. So go somewhere, just travel somewhere. I would agree with you. I take my kids right now, since they're 12 and 10. I want to make sure they get that different perspective. So last year, we were fortunate enough to take the family to New Zealand. So it was their first time out of the country to see New Zealand, to see the sights.
That's awesome.
To meet New Zealand. Yeah, so I think they loved it. They loved the different, like I learned a lot about New Zealand. I didn't realize that there were no natural predators there, all birds. Europeans brought like rats and all those other things onto the island, and a lot of their stuff is hydroelectric. So it's a very cool place.
Yeah, that's awesome. Like we said earlier, the city makes you cold. Growing up in the Midwest and in the South, you always say hi to people on the street. You walk by somebody, you're like, hey, how you doing? Good morning or whatever. You make eye contact.
Yes.
And then I come to San Diego and I live in the city here, and people just won't even look at you. You'll walk right by them and you're like, hey. And after a while, and then the homeless people. And then you start to see like the same group of homeless people. So you're like, oh, that's Frank. He's always cracked out over there, whatever. There's this guy like not giving money. There's this guy over at North Park who I've walked by a million times, and he always asks for $1. And a couple times, well, one time I remember specifically, he was like hitting his fentanyl pipe and was like blowing the smoke out. And he's like, "Can I get $1?" As I'm going by, I'm like, "Get the fuck out of here! What are you talking about?"
Well, see, you know, that was one thing. Yeah, Midwest South, people are very friendly, but in New York, that's a sign of weakness. Like, no, you have to be unapproachable, because then someone maybe with nefarious intent will approach you. You got to be as...
See, I always try to think the best of people. You know, I always give people the benefit of the doubt. Obviously, there's like ways you can tell someone, you know, that you're giving off a bad vibe or something like that. Yes. But for the most part, I'm like, hey, you know, if you say something, until you lie to me or I know that you're a proven, like, you know, scumbag, then I'm not. I think you're probably a good person. So you're right. That's how people get ripped off. People like think the best. Like, yeah, man, I'll give you a $100,000 loan. I'm sure you'll pay it back.
Yeah. So don't get me wrong. New Yorkers are great people. If you are in trouble, New Yorkers will come to your aid in flocks. Maybe 10 people will help you, but maybe 5 out of 10 will additionally rob you. So you have to be careful.
Playing the odds.
You're playing the odds. So, but New Yorkers will always help you when you're in need. But yeah, don't say hi to anyone. Just keep walking.
Just keep on moving. Keep it moving.
Yeah, so
slowing down for traffic.
Yeah, don't take it personal. Don't stare up at the skyscrapers, because everyone knows you're a tourist at that point.
I always look like a tourist because I'm walking around with a camera. I'll be walking around downtown with a camera and stuff, and people will approach me. I'm like, dude, I live here, man. I don't want your CD. I appreciate it. You know what I'm saying? Like,
no.
Yeah, it's free CD. You just got to donate. Like, no, thank you.
No,
thank you.
I don't want your mixtape.
So let's talk about back to the military stuff. At what point did you transition platforms?
So I transitioned. I was about 10 years in the Navy. My last job was at Moody Air Force Base. I was a flight instructor. So I was a T-6 instructor. The Air Force and Navy had just purchased this aircraft jointly. So it's joint student undergraduate pilot training at Moody Air Force Base. I trained about 25 Navy students a year in addition to all the Air Force students. So at the end of my time, it was about the 10-year mark, I decided I was going to actually get out of the military. But my commander at the time said, hey, come over to the Air Force. Check out, see what we got. Maybe you could fly F-117s, U-2s, you know, B-2, like all these different things, B-52s. And I said, all right, let me look. And so the U-2 was something I was like, this seems like a pretty cool platform. Reconnaissance is something that I was used to doing. Also, the fact that it was high altitude and I wanted to be an astronaut. And I said this could make my resume look different than other people. So you're flying above 70,000 feet. You're in a NASA spacesuit. You're doing a mission. I said, well, all right, let's see if let me put in an application and see if I get picked up. So for the U-2 program, you have to apply. You have to have prior flight experience in another aircraft. You have to be an instructor previously, and you have to have a minimum flight hours. I think at that time it was maybe, I don't know, 1,500 flight hours, 2,000 flight hours, maybe 750 instructor hours. So I applied. I got picked up for the interview. It's a 2-week interview process. I went out as a Navy person, interviewed, and I got picked up. And at the same time, concurrently, I was working in inter-service transfer package to go into the Air Force. So it is in the instructions in both the Navy and the Air Force side. And so I got hired. And so I initially got rejected by the Air Force to inter-service transfer, but then I had to call up AFPC and say, hey, I got an interview with the U-2. And they said, okay, well, if you get picked up, we'll let you come into the Air Force. And that's what I did. That's how it worked.
That's how it worked. That's awesome. That's a pretty interesting program, and kind of, I mean, I think the forces in general are always trying to not lose pilots, especially pilots that have a lot of experience, because it's very easy for, you know, someone, especially cargo aircraft pilots, they can move over to commercial airliners and stuff pretty easily. Yeah. And the packages to come over there are kind of lucrative. You know, it's like, hey, So it takes a lot to keep people in. So I mean, having those options presented to you, like maybe this, maybe that. I mean, at this time, were you still, was that your goal still, was to try to get into space or become an astronaut, or did this reignite it?
No, look, you ask me now, I still want to be an astronaut. If
Still
SpaceX
available.
said, yeah, I'm still available. I might have two titanium hips now, but I
It's fine.
am in good shape. It's all good. Just a flesh wound.
You're gonna be floating around
So
anyways. Who needs hips?
yeah, who needs muscle? I mean, you lose muscle mass anyway. So um, it has always been a desire for me to go into space. I always wanted to be explorer. I always want to do something new and challenging. I always want to test my limits as a person. And so that has always stayed with me even to this day. So for me, being an airline pilot, I think is one of the most, no offense to those who fly in the military and then go airlines, I think it's one of the most boring things that you can ever do. Like I can't, it's like being a race car driver and then getting out as a race car driver and then driving for Uber. The money's great, the money could be good, but it's not where it's at for me. I
Hmm.
can't taking passengers or packages from point A to point C without breaking down at point B. It's just not my thing. But some people really like it. They love it, and that's their passion. My passion is to challenge myself, fly different aircraft, go into space, explore, use all the tools that I've accumulated in my lifetime to navigate me for the future. So I love that part.
Well, I mean, obviously, this is the platform to get you excited. To be doing something. That's the next step, right? So,
Right.
how was the selection process for you, and then how was the training, and how did that training differ from what you'd already experienced before?
Yeah, so the selection process for the U-2 specifically is it's a 2-week interview. The first week you talk to like commanders, you get the feel for the environment, what you're going to go through. You do a claustrophobic check, they do all these measurements, medical stuff. Then the second week, if you pass the first week, some people don't. Some people say it's not for me. And then sometimes the community's actually watching you. And sometimes they go in the community, if they say, I will not deploy with that person, your interview is terminated right there. Because
Hmm.
we dead out together. So you have to get along with people. Um, and so the second week you fly, you do 3 flights in the aircraft and they see how trainable you are. So you do multiple landings, do low flights only. And each flight you need to progress. If you don't, they will say thank you at the end of the third flight. Thanks, but no thanks. And if they accept you, they'll say, we'd like to offer you a job. And then you have a choice, take it or not. So I will tell you, my first flight was okay, a little rough. Wing control was my biggest nemesis in the beginning. So for those who don't know about the U-2 has a bicycle landing gear system. Because of the bicycle landing gear, you have to stall the aircraft in the long wingspan. You have to stall the aircraft at 2 feet to land it. You can't do it at 3 feet, 4 feet. If you do, you're going to break stuff. You can't land it like a normal aircraft where you're going to bounce back up in the air at 4 feet and then stall in. So once you land, you still have to fly the wings and keep them level. Most aircraft, you can let go of the stick at that point and do whatever.
Hmm.
So imagine being in the aircraft with a yoke, not a stick, flying this aircraft, making quick adjustments, keeping it at 2 feet to land. And then once you do that in a flight suit, imagine having to do that in a pressure suit where it limits your view, your movement. It's really claustrophobic. It's a very small area. So it's not for everyone. I always say flying the U-2 is like the land of the not quite right. You got to be a little mentally touched to sit in an aircraft for our missions typically go from 9 to 12 hours. Sit by yourself, no bathroom, sucking out food from a tube. Um, you can do number one, but you can't do number two, and fly this mission by yourself. And then when you're most tired at the end of the day, stall the aircraft at 2 feet, and land. An aircraft that does not like to fly low because it's a long wingspan, 104.8 feet, flies great up at altitude, but when you get down low, you're just ratcheting. If you can imagine driving a race car and you see inside the car, you see the driver doing a lot of ratcheting. Same thing in the U-2 as we're flying. So it's a lot of quick inputs, taking it out before it reacts, like a helicopter. So you got to be a little touched in the head to love that stuff.
That's exciting.
That's
though.
me. Yeah, that's me. Like, that's me and all my YouTube brothers and sisters out there. There's 1,116 of us in the 70 years that the U-2 has flown.
That's crazy.
That's crazy. Yeah, we're a crazy bunch.
How long do you? So once you've done those 3 flights, I assume none of those are at altitude. At like
no, they're all low flights. The first flight you go up, you learn. So in any aircraft, you have to learn stall characteristics, how the aircraft flies slow and how it stalls. Those are, for anyone flying, those are any aircraft future, you have to understand those things. In fixed wing aircraft and helicopters, a little different. So you get the flight characteristic feel of it, and then we go right back to the pattern, and you start just doing landings, different type of landings over and over again. Normal landings, no flap landings. You do single engine. You do failure patterns over and over. So they give you that information before you get there for the interview. So you have to study all the numbers and where you're supposed to hit. And, you're at this point in the U-2 community, you're a seasoned pilot anyway. Most people have over 2,000 hours. So I had about 2,500 hours, maybe more than that, maybe closer. No,
which is quite a bit for people that don't know. That's a lot.
That's a lot. That's a lot of missions. That's a lot of deployments. That I had 2 long cruise deployments. I had about close to 1,000 hours in the T-6 flying students. So I had a lot of flight time. So
that's got to be nerve-wracking when you're flying students. Never knowing.
Yeah.
I feel like that preps you, right, for the U-2, being nervous, because you're like, I've already flown with some really bad pilots. So,
I've flown with some students that have done some wild stuff. Like, the purpose of a flight instructor is to fly with a student, prevent them from killing both of you, and then teach them something along the way, like muscle memory and knowledge. Like, most military students, they want to be there, so they want to learn. It's not like civilian flying where you got someone's like, oh, I feel like picking this up, and then wants to fight you about everything you're trying to teach them.
Yeah.
That's why I'm not an instructor.
Do you think that made you, after being an instructor pilot like that, when you moved over to the U-2, do you think that made you a better student because you understood what this guy's trying to do or what this other pilot's trying to do?
No, I think most military pilots are professional in that way. We don't take it personal.
Yeah. Like,
we could be a student or an instructor. You never take stuff like that personal.
Everyone's getting feedback.
Everyone is giving or getting feedback, either by another person or the aircraft. So there's a point where if you have too much ego, you're probably going to kill yourself and the people around you. So that's why the pilot community, there's certain things that have happened recently since the beginning of the year, like a lot of mishaps that have been going on, where people are questioning like a pilot's credentials, capabilities, how they were taught. In our community, we police our own, and we know that if there's someone who's weak, they will get the feedback, they will get the instruction, and they will get the help. And either they are correctable or not correctable. If they are not correctable, they will find another job to do, or they will be taken off the flight line, or they will lose their wings. I've seen it happen. I've been on boards where it has happened, especially for students. If they are not trainable to a point, we terminate their training and they go do something else. So the flight community is very serious, especially in the military field. I can't speak to civilian, but they have the similar standards. We are very serious about how we train people, and we would not let someone Could you imagine as an instructor if I allowed a student who was weak to go in a solo and then he crashes an aircraft and kills himself?
Yeah.
Like I can't. I would never be able. Like that'd be hard to live with.
Yeah.
So as an instructor, you always make sure your students are on point, know their knowledge, know how to fly, and they're safe. That's it.
Safety's priority.
I won't let yeah, I wouldn't let you fly solo if I thought differently. And I think all military pilots are like that. Um, we all fall in the spectrum. Some may be more egotistical than others, some are humble, but we all, like, flying skill wise, we all have that same basic foundation. So, and we all think that way. So that's
yeah, no, I agree. I mean, when you look at it, it's life and death. It's really life and death, and it's
Yes.
kind of like what we talked about earlier about people, how it's frustrating sometimes listening to people's issues, that are civilians that have never done something like that. When you go from a community where there's actual life and death issues, if you mess up, then,
Yes.
it's, we had that in the JTAC community, which is an extension of the air community, because it's like we're dropping live ordnance. You can't mess that up. You have to be good at that. And I was a JTAC evaluator, and I've done an evaluation for a guy that graduated from TCP school, but he got to his unit, and I was doing his evaluations, and I'm like, you're just not safe, man. And I had to sit down with his first sergeant and CO and tell him and be like, he's not allowed to control aircraft. He's not allowed to drop live ordnance because he's just not safe. He's not safe in real life, and he's not safe when we're doing sims. And because he continues to be unsafe and make these things, he can't. Because, like you said, imagine if I'm like, oh, whatever, he'll be okay, and then he goes and drops a bomb on himself or civilians or something like that. You can't accept that level. You have to be good.
So likewise, as me as a pilot, like I go through that same rigor, right? So, and I will say this, like, if someone, look, throughout my career in the Navy or the Air Force, maybe when I walked in the room, people thought that different things, but it's not. It's like the brotherhood and sisterhood. This is how it is. It doesn't matter who you are, because the aircraft doesn't care.
Mm-hmm.
The aircraft doesn't care of your gender, your whatever. It doesn't, your race or whatever. You either put the correct inputs in to make it do what it's supposed to do, or you don't, and it will not do what you're supposed to do.
Yeah.
So it's interesting to me how people think a certain way, because if you're in the military, where life, in any type of area, whether you're a doctor, whether you're in the military, where you're JTAC, it's like everyone who's in the community holds those, are gatekeepers in a way. Like, we're not going to let one person destroy the reputation of everyone, right? So we police our own in every situation. And there are times that you may make a mistake, but you can't make a really big mistake. Like, you have minor things. But if you're consistently underperforming, doesn't matter who you are, you're going to get removed. It's just,
these rules are written in blood. That's how it is.
Yes.
And the rules are written in blood. And as I always tell people, there were great dudes that I worked with that just, they weren't good JTACs. They didn't pass the schoolhouse or something like that. Or guys that I worked with in jobs where it's like, hey man, you're not a bad person. You're just not the person for this job. Like, absolutely. I'm not saying you're a bad Marine. I'm not saying you're a bad person. You got to do something that fits your skill set. And this isn't
100%.
And it's hard to tell somebody that, because I wouldn't want to hear that. I would be devastated if someone came to me and told me that, and it's hard to tell somebody that, but you have to. And in those kind of communities where lives are on the line, we always debrief all together. We all sit around and go, hey, this was what happened on this mission. Aircraft checked in at this time. You said this, this, and this. You should have said this. Everything else was good. And we go through every little point, and everybody hears it, because we're all learning, because we want everyone to be better. And that's the same with me. Like, if someone is evaluating me, we're all sitting there and everyone listens to me getting, my own evaluation. So,
yes. So debriefs are very important, right? In the pilot community, sometimes debriefs go longer than the flight themselves, because that's how in the weeds people go. Like, what were you thinking at the time? What were you doing? And I think most pilots, they're able to take that criticism. Most military people take that criticism because they want to be better. They want to make the team stronger.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's an emotional intelligence piece of those who are able to do that, because they want to see things better, run smoother, we're more efficient. Because at the end of the day, we have that mindset, like, we want to win, we want to be the best.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I would, if I made a
hear you.
mistake, if I made a mistake on the radio or something, I would think about it for weeks or months. I would be sitting there doing something completely different, and I would think about it and be like, idiot. Like 6 months later, idiot. I can't believe you said that, you know, which is crazy, but it's like, you kind of have to, you know, you have to be able to beat yourself up and be like, because it's to be better, you know, which is good. Go ahead.
Yeah. So in the U-2 community, when we're deployed, we fly once every 3 days, because after you fly high, no flying duties the next day because of the exposure physiologically. And we'll probably talk about that a little bit. Physiologically to the altitude that you're at and the cabin pressure. And so imagine you're coming into land after a 10.5-hour mission, and you just have, maybe your landing is not the best. It's safe, everything is okay, but you just don't have a great landing. You got to think about that for the next 3 days till you get back in the cockpit, and you're just like an OCD person, just going through what could I have done better? Why did I do this? Why did I do that? Yeah, that's us.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. You know, it's just like you have to be like that, though. That's how you get to that level, you know, because you care, you know.
Yes.
And that's why I think a lot of people have a problem when they get out of the military, because they don't find something that they care about like they did to the level of the job that they were doing while they were in, you know. And it's almost forced upon you to care, you know, because you don't want to be the person that's not providing something to the team. You know, you don't want to be a liability here. And and I think when you get out, there's not really that drive anymore. There's not, so people got to find that thing that they care about. Now in the U-2, so let's say you're getting past all your training. At what point do you get your own spacesuit? Is this custom? Do you get to keep it afterwards?
No. So the suit runs 6 figures. So we have 2 suits typically. They during the interview process, you're being fitted for the suit. So gloves, everything's. Some people get a custom-made suit, which is $250,000. That was many years ago. It's probably more expensive now to create. The standard suit is about $100,000. They won't let you keep the suit. I may or may not have one in my possession right now as on loan.
What do they do with them? I mean, if you don't, because if they're custom to you, they just hang it up in some warehouse somewhere?
Absolutely, yes.
Oh, that's horrible.
I know, but they don't, you know, they are NASA.
I get all my military uniforms when I got out. They're all hanging in my closet.
I know.
I feel like a spacesuit qualifies.
I know. Perhaps one day I'll have. One day. We'll
they should give you the opportunity to buy it back if they're not using it. Or you lobby and you get a museum, your local museum, you get to put it up at a local museum so you can at least go visit it all the time.
I actually, they were going to send my suit to the African American Museum, but somehow
awesome.
but the African American Museum, they said they wanted it, but then do the paperwork. Anyway, it'll go to a nice home. That's
cool. That's the spacesuit is awesome. I mean, that's legit. You're getting fitted. You were probably like, yes, I've made it. I'm getting fitted for a spacesuit.
Well, that, and then they're like, okay, now you have to sit in this one for an hour to see if you freak out because you have claustrophobia. I fell asleep.
I was gonna say, I feel like it wouldn't be that bad with the helmet and everything on.
Oh, it was great. It was, you just hear yourself breathing. It's like, yeah, that's all.
What was unique about it? What surprised you about having a spacesuit, or like how it fit, or what it did?
What surprised me? I'll tell you a story. I don't know if it's appropriate. What's your audience like?
Go ahead. I think it'll be great.
The first time, so in the suit, you can do number 1 in the suit. So peeing in the suit's fine. So for men, when they put the suit on, we have what's called the UCD, urinary collection device. For men, it's basically It's basically a huge size. Actually, I'll send you a picture of it. It's huge size, like condom that fits over their ho-has, and you cut it to size. And so it has a tube. When they pee in it, that tube connects to your suit and connects to another hose from your suit to a collection device in the aircraft. So it holds about, I think, a liter of urine. And so guys use that. For women, we have a pad. So we have a pad with a hose that connects in our suit, does the same thing. So we pee on the pad, and then we kind of increase the pressure to allow flow to happen. So when you saturate the pad, there's, suction that takes that liquid away from the pad. So my first flight in the my first high flight in the suit. I'm in the suit. I'm excited, but I'm sweating because the suit, it's like putting a plastic bag. The liner is like a plastic bag around you. So if you're moving a lot, you generate a lot of heat and you sweat. And so I'm there and I'm excited. I'm sweating. I can feel all the sweat because I'm getting cold because of the vent air. And when you get integrated in the suit, you have you have people who are called physiologists that put you in the suit. They're from the physiological support squadron. They maintain the suits for you. They integrate you in the aircraft. They check your oxygen. They do all this stuff. So I'm being integrated. And as part of the integration, they have to check the UCD to make sure there's good airflow going through. So I'm sitting in the cockpit. I'm sweating. I'm excited. I'm breathing too much oxygen. The warning lights are going off because I'm like, let's go. I'm fired up. I'm just so fired up. And so so everything's sweaty, including the pad for the UCD. So he's like, ma'am, he's yelling really loud. He's like, I'm going to check your hose to make sure it's okay. And I'm like, so he opens the vent. So imagine just being hot and then you get a blast of cold air in the private areas. So I'm with an instructor and we're on hot mic because we're talking back and forth. And then all of a sudden I let out a big whoa! It was pretty shocking, the blast of air in that area. And he starts laughing, my instructor, also known as Huggy. He just starts cracking up. There's another pilot listening who's the mobile. We didn't talk about that yet, but they're dying. I'm like, oh my gosh, that was exhilarating. Is this what the flight's going to be like? So I start just talking and I'm all psyched up. And he's like, Merrill, you need to stop. I'm like, let's go. I'm so excited. So that's
how you end up with a call sign. I said something like that's how you end up with a call sign.
That's how you end up with a call sign. I thought about that, but I didn't say anything. I was too excited about the flight. And it was that about the suit was incredibly eye-opening. Everything else, I was cool. But the blast of cold air, yes.
Exciting.
Exciting. Exhilarating.
When you're up at altitude, how are you affected by radiation at all? I imagine, is that part of the suit's protection? Okay. What's the gravity like? I mean, you're not weightless at that point, right? I don't think so.
No. So the amount of radiation that sometimes they had us travel with dosimeters for radiation readings. So it's nothing out of the ordinary. You still have the aircraft, you're still in a suit. So the exposure is not, from my understanding, is not that significant. I had to defer to my husband, who's a physicist. He specializes in nuclear physics. So he works at Lawrence Livermore Lab. So he assured me that that's not the case. Nice. So I will believe him. And so, there's no weightlessness. Radiation exposure is pretty normal. And the only thing that's really different is the cabin altitude. At the time that I was flying the U-2, the cabin altitude was at close to 29,000 feet. So Mount Everest altitudes. So exposure to decompression sickness was a real thing. It happened to a lot of my friends. So because of that, we have to pre-breathe oxygen, 100% oxygen an hour before we take off.
What's that like? I've heard that's gives you a head buzz almost from taking pure oxygen.
it's not a head buzz, but I mean,
Like you're more sharp or clear.
it. I would a little bit.
Yeah.
When you do it enough, when we did missions, they would give us go gel. So I don't know what made me more sharp, the O2 or the actual the amphetamines they gave us. So or the ability to take those. Um, your body likes 100% oxygen more, so it will off gas basically the nitrogen in your system. So yeah, it's not that much of a pick me up in my opinion, but maybe I was just used to it at a certain point. I never really felt any difference about that.
Hmm.
I could just tell you that I didn't really suffer from any decompression issues. When you're done with a flight, that's why you don't fly the next day. You're not supposed to work out the next day. You should stay hydrated when you fly, have good diet, do all those things that you're supposed to do if you're an athlete type thing.
Mm-hmm.
So I did that. I mean, I'm really into, maybe as you can see, working out. So I work out a lot. I lift weights quite a bit. More muscle you have, you know, the better you are physically.
Yeah.
So unfortunately, a lot of my friends during the time I flew the U-2, especially in missions to Afghanistan and Iraq, some of them really had some serious DCS issues. Um, one of my peers almost crashed an aircraft back in 2000 and I don't know, it was maybe 2005, because he had decompression sickness, but it was neurological. So he was in a bad way. He ended up getting out of the military, just getting medically retired
Wow.
from. Yeah, he suffered permanent brain damage. So that accident
Jeez.
investigation board was, yeah, it was bad. And I have a couple of other friends that have like they suffered almost like concussion type injuries,
So
like
what?
football players would have.
Why don't they have a lower altitude for your in cabin pressure then?
So they did change that back when I was the commander at Palmdale for U-2 flight test. Lockheed Martin lowered the cabin pressure in single seat aircraft down to about 15,000 feet.
That may yeah.
Because
I mean,
well, in the beginning, I don't think they knew when they first created the U-2, but over time, it was kind of cost prohibitive to do the modifications for the frame and structure, according to Lockheed.
that's
But
crazy.
then they were able to reach some type of.
What's more? I mean, what's worse, having pilots freaking go through these issues and then you lose them, or crash an aircraft? I mean, imagine crashing an aircraft during a mission because of something like that. What a dumb assessment, you know?
Right. Well, we almost had one, and they couldn't understand because it was during the time I was flying missions. So when we started doing a lot more frequent missions, maybe a little longer, they couldn't really pinpoint because they actually did a study of U-2 pilots and how many brain lesions that we have, how much
God,
did
not
we
if you
fly.
have them. How many you have?
Yeah.
You're like, how many? Like it's. I
Like
would
it's
have.
it's
That's crazy.
so we all have them. Like I had about I was told I have about 20. I don't know how that.
Wow.
Yeah, so but some of the guys who really had significant issues, they had a lot more. A lot.
What causes the brain lesions? Just the altitude or
Just
the
exposure to the altitude. So
wow?
if you're a hiker, like if you're doing like K2 all the time, you probably have something similar.
How do those affect you, or do they affect you? Is it just a
I'll be honest, I didn't think I was affected that much until I stopped flying the U-2. And it's very interesting because once I was the commander and I'm done, of course, you do your command job, you're happy, and then they stick you at a desk for a while. So I went to NORAD Northcom and worked there for 3 years for my joint tour. And 6 months after I stopped flying, I can only explain it as if I was kind of in a fog, but it was lifted. Like things were slightly clearer, and that's the only way I can explain it. It's like cognitively I could do things, but I felt that I was slower. But
mm,
after 6 months, it started feeling, oh, huh, huh. It's like one of those, huh, things are clearer,
Yeah,
more in focus. That's the only way I can explain it.
that's
Um,
interesting.
yes, so it's one of those things you can't explain, but something has changed for the better, and that's how it was. My friends who suffered more extensive damage, they would explain it like one of my friends said. He was driving to work, and he stopped. He pulled over because he forgot where he was driving to.
Mm.
That's how bad it was. And so, another friend of mine, she became the wing commander at Beale. She actually pulled herself out of flying because she there were things that were wrong that she really couldn't quantify, but there was issues that she was having, just remembering certain words, doing certain things. So I get it. I understand why. I just was not affected as, severely. So yeah.
Yeah, I think you hear that similar kind of stories from people that have like hit an IED or something that have like a TBI, the
Yes.
traumatic brain injury. Same kind of thing. Like I had a slight, I mean, nowhere near anything like that where I forget stuff all the time. I'll have to write
Right.
stuff down. I really lean on using my calendar to remember stuff. Um, I was never hit by an IED. I'll put that out there. I was the worst that I ever had it was when I was in the back blast of a SPG-9, which is like a recoilless rifle, and
Yeah.
that about knocked me out. And I don't know. It's just like you hear from guys that and girls that have like a lot of exposure, or they hit like a really bad IED, and similar kind of issues, memory problems, things. I don't know. That's crazy that you guys can get better though. That it kind of. I imagine you'll never get back to where you were previously before all the brain lesions, but.
Well, yeah. So I think brain lesions stay with you. They don't know the long-term effects. And
Yeah.
I'll tell you what, I got two, kids that are preteens, and right now they're sucking my whole life force. So I can't tell the difference.
You just got mom brain right now.
I got, I know, I just know I have to be 5 steps ahead of them, which I am. So it's once they start outsmarting me,
Don't think
then I
I've
know.
lost my edge yet. I'm
Yeah,
still
I haven't
here.
lost my edge.
I have a teenage son. I know what you're talking about.
Oh, how old is he?
He just turned 18. Well, in October, he turned 18. So
Oh,
he's about to graduate high school and, move
nice
on.
job, Dad.
Yeah. Now I'm in the like trying to give him some life advice, and I've made it very clear like nothing I can say. You can do whatever you want now because you're 18, but you really got to understand that there's consequences for little things that before wouldn't have mattered. You know,
Right.
I'm like, know who you're hanging out with, know where you're going, kind of deal, because those are things. But anyways, we'll get back to. I want to talk. I want to ask, and we go down the dad route. What was it like on that first high altitude flight, just looking out the cockpit and seeing the view? I mean, that has to have been amazing.
Um, it was okay after I stopped breathing so hard. I fogged up my canopy. So,
Uh,
like the first flight, because you're so excited, you fog it up. So it took about an hour to kind of like I could see, but you could see the curvature of the earth. You could see the sky starting to get darker. It was a daytime flight, so it was just really. I was with an instructor. The first two high flights, you go with an instructor, and then after that, you're solo the rest of the time. So
that's crazy.
yeah, it was just cool. Like I got to try tube food for the first time. Um,
What's the best and worst tube food? There's got to be a good
you,
one and a bad one, right?
so they've changed some of the stuff since I've left. I used to love caramel pudding that they took off, and then I tried to stick with vegetarian pasta, which they took away too. The worst used to be it was either Manhattan or New England. It was Manhattan clam chowder. I don't know who the hell
Oh,
thought of that. That is the worst. I've cracked it open just to pour some out just to see what it looked like. I
a
I
nice
don't know what they
chowder
were
at
thinking.
70,000 feet.
Yeah, oh, it was horrendous. Caffeinated pudding was cool. That was 200 milligrams of caffeine in the tube.
Nice.
Um, recently, since I left, they have like hash browns and bacon, mac and cheese, or mac and cheese with caffeine, apple pie with caffeine.
Caffeinated mac and cheese. What a
It's called Jazzy Mac.
The Marine Corps should pick that one up.
They'd be like, I was gonna say they could be like caged animals, but
They used
be
to
unhinged.
they used to give us like an applesauce pack, and some of the MREs would have like applesauce with caffeine in it, and then they had these chocolate covered espresso beans. They called them like buzz beans or something like that.
Really?
Yeah.
If you gave the Marine Corps caffeinated pudding, they would be unhinged.
Bunch of
200
maniacs.
milligrams. I mean, that's like having Celsius in a
Well, honestly, that's probably
standard.
yeah. I drink a pot of coffee a day by myself. You know, I think we used to run through coffee, especially long days on the OP. You know, having coffee in some form or fashion was a must. I used to bring out a French press, and someone else would bring out a what's it called? It's like a camping stove to boil water, and then I'd have the French press, and I'd bring a bag of coffee beans, and I had a little hand grinder. I actually started that. I started doing that on ship because they would never have coffee on the mess deck. I'm like, how do we not have coffee? How are we on a ship and we have no coffee? And sometimes they'd be like, "We'll make it, sorry," and then maybe they would make it, or they'd make it like garbage. It was just, I got so tired of it. So when I was on ship, I got on Amazon and I ordered a 10-pound bag of coffee beans, a hand grinder so I didn't have to use electricity, and a French press. And I would just be up in my office and I would grind out some beans, and someone else would want a cup of coffee. I'd be like, "Go clean the French press out and get some fresh water and we'll have coffee." And it was just like,
you should have started a Starbucks on the ship. You could have made out.
I probably could have. Actually, after people saw me doing it, and then French presses started popping up, more people started doing it. Because I explained, I was like, "Yeah, I just got a hand grinder and the beans from Amazon." Yeah. I kind of wanted to start a coffee business, but that's like that's so bro vet. That's very much a veteran thing to do. But I'm like, I actually did love making good coffee. You know, like when we were out in the field or something. The Brits loved it too. If you were out in the field with the Brits and you bust out, and they'll be like, "Oh, make a cup." You know, like.
Did they have the alcohol?
No, not when I did any kind of work with them. We didn't. Okay. They do on their ships. They do have alcohol though. I was never on any of their ships though. From what I understand, they have a bar on their ship.
Yes.
Where they're allowed. Oh, have you been on a British ship?
I've been on just other ships. Yeah, everyone like America, do it right. They like to party.
Yeah, they don't allow that on our ships.
No, they don't. We're all business.
And you get the what is it? Steel picnic if you're at sea for too long. Get your 2 beers or whatever.
Yes.
Miserable stuff, but
did you ever do swim call?
No, I don't think they ever did it while I was on ship. Actually, they did. They probably did it while we were ashore, because we were ashore for at least 60 days. I mean, they were on ship for almost 3 months straight without ever seeing a port. So I'm sure at some point they did something like that for them, because insanity will start to ensue. For people that don't know, who've never been on ship, it is not, you honestly have to tell, unless you work on the flight deck or something like that, you have to remind yourself to go outside and get sunlight. Because it's very easy to just be on ship and never emerge from the skin of the ship. And it's like, have I been outside today? You have to kind of set that in your schedule to like get outside and get 15 minutes of sun, because
you need the vitamin D.
Everybody starts going insane. Like, it's so miserable.
Yeah. But I did a swim call once. It's fun.
Was it? Did what was it off of? Was it off the? So I think if we would have done it, they probably would have done it in the well deck, because we had a well deck on the LHD. Were you guys just doing it off the side of the ship or off the back?
Yeah, we were doing it off the back of the ship. Was it in the cruiser? I'm almost sure it was.
Cruisers and destroyers, I've heard, have the best deployments because they can't be at sea as long, so they get more port calls.
No, we were with the shotgun we were the shotgun cruiser for the GW battle.
What is that? What does shotgun cruiser mean?
So that means we follow the carrier everywhere. Like if someone breaks the defense, we are like the final, like we are the most equipped to handle anyone coming. We probably at that time had the most missiles of anywhere. That's why they sent us. That's why they sent the battle group up to the North Arabian Gulf. This was during a time where Saddam was um, just being a jackknife about something. He didn't want to sign some agreement, so they shipped us all. We were supposed to be in the Mediterranean for 4 months.
Mm-hmm.
After a month, after we got there across the Atlantic, we did 2 port visits, and they shipped us right out there. And so, yeah, I just remember the one thing, he wasn't signing something. He had till 12 o'clock to do it. And we were ready to fire on him. And we were all on the flight deck, chem geared up, ready to go, ready to rock and roll.
That's crazy. It's crazy.
And I was just,
Go ahead.
I was sitting there like, bro, what are you doing? I was so mad. I was like, sign it.
Sign it, you son of a...
I don't want this nonsense.
You know what's wild about stuff like that, and it's easy to look back and be like, like that was crazy.
Yeah.
But at the time, you don't know what's about to happen. And when you're putting on like a chem suit for real, there's no way to be like, oh, this is funny. Ha ha ha. Now it's like, oh, what are we getting into right now? Like this is about to get real fast.
Yeah, you're thinking like, okay, if the cruiser fires, like, what are we going to be doing? Like in my mind, I'm like, okay, as a pilot, what does this mean? What is going to happen? How many strikes are we going to do? What are we launching? So, yeah, but now, I'm less like, damn it, Saddam Hussein. What? Why? Why do you have to be like that?
It makes me think about the ships that are over off of like Yemen right now.
Yes,
and they're actually shooting down like anti-ship missiles and drones and stuff. And I remember on our deployments, we would always do, general quarters drills and stuff like that. And for the Marines, that means go to your berthing area and just chill while the Navy does their thing. And you'd sit there and you'd hear like simulated impact left side in 30 seconds or something like that. And they would be like counting, like as if you're taking incoming missiles. And I'm like, that's to have that actually be happening is wild. To be in a ship and being like, oh shit, please don't hit us, please don't hit us, please. And then you hear that it got shot down or something, like, whew. I mean, it's easy to be like, oh yeah, they shot them all down, no big deal. But the people on those ships are going through some roller coasters of emotions right there when that's happening.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, it's when, flying over like Afghanistan, Iraq, talking to you guys and saying, do you need anything? Hey, we just intercepted some transmissions that this and this are going to happen, or hey, check this, and this is within what accuracy. I'm flying around, and every so often I'm like, if I lose an engine here, this is going to really suck. If I lose my only engine, this is going to really suck. Which area would I go? Oh, I don't want to be here this long. Like, there were times where, if you landed, in the sandbox somewhere, you're like, which tribe is going to kill me the quickest? Like, you thought about those things. And the mental gymnastics that you go through a little bit, like, oh, did I make sure everything was taken care of before doing all this? That's a real thing. So whether you're in the boat, whether you're in the plane, whether you're with the MEU, like, it's just one of those, you love doing what you're doing, but you think about like, it's gotten real quick. And it's like, oh, now what do I do? And then once it's done, you kind of laugh going, oh, that was fun.
Yeah. You get those reality checks,
Yeah.
I always think about like when we would get ready for deployment, we'd have base legal come down and give us a class, and then everybody had to fill out their will. And I'm like, these 18 and 19-year-old kids, like, this is probably the first time they're like, wait, hold on. Like, like, what a reality check, right? Like, hey, make sure your family gets what's due to them. Make sure you fill out the will and and all this stuff. And it's like, wow, for some kids, that's probably the first time they're like, oh shit, this is about to get real,
Yeah, it's time to put your big boy, big girl pants on, because it's like I don't know if you've ever have had to be on the other end to tell a parent that their
No.
son or daughter is being gone, or has or is deceased. But yeah, it doesn't feel good either. Like,
Have you done that? You've had to do that?
I've done that. Yeah.
God, that's got to be the toughest job in the
It
military. Is
was
something like that.
yeah, it was one of those things where it was unexpected. I was a commander down at Palmdale, and the jurisdiction that the I forgot what the service is called. They go as far south as, not San Diego, but they went pretty far south. And I got a call like, "Hey, we need you to go tell a family that their son died in training up at F.E. Warren." So I was like, "Oh, okay." So, you go with the group, you go with the chaplain, you go with the group of people, you're dressed up in your blues, you go there and you look for the family. And so, yeah, it was terrible. Like, it's just to tell a mom that their 18-year-old, you know,
I wouldn't be able to do it. I'd be bawling the whole time.
it's hard. I will tell you, when I came back home, I sat in my office and had some whiskey at the end, because it's just, you could tell, like, you can only tell the family what happened and how it happened. That's all you could tell them. You can't tell them anything about arrangements, body, or anything. But you could tell, like, when I did it with the mom, because I had to be the one to tell them because I was the more senior person. You could tell, the mom was just thinking about maybe the last interactions she had with her son, or conversations that were had. You could see her mind working in ways that was just awful. Like, I
Yeah.
would never want that on anyone. So when you're in a situation where you're the tip of the spear, or you're doing the mission, like, the whole end-to-end process, yeah, you're out there doing it. You don't think of the ramifications, especially when you're 18 or 19, of what it means to give the ultimate sacrifice, until you're there and you're like, well, crap, this might be it.
Yeah.
Like, it's a huge wake-up call.
Yeah. It's definitely, it's tough. It's a real world job. It's I don't know. It's dealing with that would be rough. Dealing with that, doing the family notifications. I can't remember what we called it. There was a whole, if you were
Yep.
selected for that, I think you had to do it for like 6 months or something. And then this was like for officers. I think there might have been some staff NCOs that had to do it as well, but they put you through like training and everything. And then when a call like that comes out, that becomes your only focus. Like everything else gets now put aside until you're the liaison between the family and the military until everything is settled. And I'm just like, man, that's got to be just not. I mean, somebody's got to do it, and I think it's better than, you see in like the old war movies how they would send like a telegram or something to tell the family.
Yeah,
That's
no.
crazy. So
That's great. I don't mean to laugh, but that is very insensitive. So,
yeah,
so,
to say the least, I would say very insensitive. Oh, by the way,
no,
with
by
your
the way,
weekly telegram here, but
yeah,
yeah,
no, but
that's tough. But
I that's but it's part of the job. I was a commander, so it's part of command. You come to that understanding that as a commander, it wasn't my people at that point, but you're in charge of people's lives. You're in charge of the words you say matter, how you conduct yourself matters.
mm-hmm.
And so I could be a commander that's unhinged and do things however I want and not care about the impact to other people. But I think if you want to be a good leader, you have to understand that and be able to take on the fact that, yeah, you're going to have to tell some people, family members, civilians, some awful things that have happened. And how do you convey that message with empathy and compassion? And um, that was something that I didn't want to do, but I wish I didn't have to do, but I'm glad I did it, because it taught me so much about who I am as a person, as a leader, and how to do that better. So, yeah.
And it probably helps you understand the impacts, especially as a commander, the impacts of decisions
Yes.
that you make. And
Yes.
how could things have gone differently? Or, that's the real world consequences of, I don't know the specific circumstance, but sometimes it's the real world consequences of bad decision making, and
Right.
by either the individual, the command, or whatever. Yeah, it's unfortunate. The first person I knew that died in the military was a kid I went to boot camp with, and then I was in MOS training, and then my MOS training got held back because my now ex was pregnant, and I went home for my son to be born, and I came back, and then he graduated like a month before me or something like that, and then I got to the fleet, I got to my first unit, and I saw his like best friend that had gone through boot camp. He was in his platoon, had gone through MOS school, and then they'd gone to the fleet together. And he's like, "Hey man, did you hear about Bailey?" And I'm like, "No, man, where's he at?" I'm like looking around. He's like, "He died, dude." And I'm like, "What?" And he's like, "Yeah, man, he died during a field op, during a training evolution." And I'm like, and that was like the first like, holy crap, man,
Oh yeah. Your first I get that. The first person who dies like in your sphere of military, it's a little jarring because especially if they're the same age as you realize that like this is not a game. This is something serious, and it can happen at any time. Get your act together and make sure everything is done correctly. So
yeah,
I get that. I understand that.
like we said before, the rules are written in blood. It really reinforces
Yes.
why we do things the way we do them, even if it's uncomfortable, even if it's whatever. There's a reason why. And yeah, there's overbearing rules, but almost always when it comes to safety, for almost every rule, there's an incident you can look back to and go, we do this because this happened and this person was killed, or this group was injured, or this thing was destroyed. Yeah. There's a reason why. A lot of it's not just, because I said so kind of rules.
Yeah, in the military, in the pilot world, when you have procedures, you have notes, warnings, and cautions. So notes are something to note, cautions because typically damage to aircraft has occurred, and warnings, someone has died. So, or someone could really die, or you can destroy aircraft and people. So, yes, joining, definitely in blood. It's an eye opener.
Yeah. Well, I've really enjoyed our conversation. This has been really interesting and fascinating. And I have probably a million other questions, but I don't want it to go too long. So we'll have to do something later on if you'd like.
Part 2?
Yeah, we'll have to do something later on because I know between me and I'm sure other people will have questions too. I started following. I think they follow your page. You may know him. A guy called Extreme Ross on Instagram. And that's like the first like photos and everything that I really enjoyed of like the U-2, and it's always been kind of a fascinating job. And I've never seen like the way he was showing photos from it. I was like, wow, that's really crazy that they allow him to do that. And the views are awesome. So which is kind of where I led to meet to you, and then I'm, so I really appreciate you coming on. You know him?
Thank you. Oh, that's my. All right, I'm gonna tell you some quick dirty stories.
Go ahead.
Extreme Rock. There's a reason why he's called Extreme, because he does things to the extreme. He gets in trouble. So, I think on 2 occasions he was my relief in the U-2 community. So he'd come out and just the first time was in Cyprus. We were in Cyprus, so he came to relieve me, and I was like, "Hey Ross, what's up?" So we have a couple of days of overturn together, and then I leave, and I look at him, and I look at him dead in the eyes. I'm like, "Don't you dare get in trouble while you're out here." I said, "Don't get any crap." He's like, yeah, Merrill, I got it.
Who, me?
Yeah. I don't know if it was 2 weeks later or a week later. He got sent home because he wrote an email that went around the world. And when I mean around the world, it left Cyprus, hit the West Coast, ended up at the Pentagon, and came back from the Pentagon telling him to get home because he was going to get his butt chewed. So you got to ask him the story. It's a great story. And then when I saw him, I looked at him. I said, "What did I say to you?" He goes, "I know, Merrill." He's like, "I know." Fast forward, I'm in the desert, and he's relieving me again. And we relieve, and we're talking. I'm like, "Bro, don't you get in any bleeping trouble?" He's like, "I'm not gonna get in
For
trouble."
real this time.
For real. Um, I think he got in trouble on his way back home because they missed a flight coming home because they were in Dubai and then they ended up going skiing in Dubai and missed their flight. Something stupid, and so he got in trouble again. And I mean, he got
He was
he
enjoying his
came home.
time.
He came home and I'm like, "Bro, you're a hot mess." But in all seriousness, he's a really good friend of mine. You'll see some stuff on my Instagram at DragonLady788. You know, shameless plug. Some of his pictures, because he does photography and he does drone shots. So we live like 10 minutes, 15 minutes from each other. Our kids are about the same age.
Oh, that's
so,
awesome. I've actually never asked him to even come on the show. His page somehow led me to your page. And I was like, let's do that. You know, that's why I sent you a message. It was just, I guess I thought he was still doing it. So I was like, well, I'm not going to ask somebody that's.
He flies for the airlines. He flies for the airlines now. So, gotcha. Yeah, he's a dad of 3, and his oldest sons are twins. And so, yeah, he's known as, he's extreme. His call sign for a reason, extreme. Yeah, he's a hot mess.
People
like he does.
Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, he does some crazy stuff. Gets in trouble. I'm here for it though.
That's good. And people ought to take a look at his page if you want to see some really cool photography from the U-2. Yeah. He's got some really good images on there. It's Extreme Ross. So go ahead. Your website is going to be in the show description, so everybody can go and check that out if they want to go check out your website. Where else would you like people to find you at? You mentioned your Instagram.
Instagram, DragonLady788, because I'm the 788th pilot.
Nice.
Dragon Lady, because of the shirt. You can check out my merch. Because I was on Tough as Nails season 2.
Oh, really?
And so this was the shirt that I wore. So it was designed by another Air Force captain at the time, Dana LaBelle. The show liked the shirt, and when they first introduced me to the show, like they zoomed in on my boobs, and I saw the shirt logo, and I'm like, we got to sell this and do something. So all proceeds that we make off the shirt goes to Mission 22 Veterans Organization.
Awesome.
So so with that on the show, they kept calling me the Dragon Lady, which is the name of the aircraft, but I've kind of distinguished it. Yeah, I fly the Dragon Lady, but I'm pilot number 788.
That's awesome.
Ross, yeah. So Ross is, I think, he's probably pilot number 790 something. Like, we're very close.
You call him a new guy? You're like, these new guys.
Yeah. I was like, you new guy. No, we trained around the same time. So yeah. And then if you're doing LinkedIn because you're a professional, I'm Merryl Tengesdal. Subscribe on my YouTube because I don't have a lot of people following me. I do motivational stuff.
I'll put a link to your YouTube channel in my description too, so people can check that out as well. Hopefully,
yeah,
over there.
Yeah, I do some motivational stuff, talk, or I interview some people sometimes, really short interviews about aviation or just uplifting things that people do.
That's good. I like the positive feedback to the community. That's great. That's good stuff. Everybody, you can check my stuff out, Former Action Guys and Former Action News on Instagram. My website is jcramergraphics.com, and that's it. I really appreciate you coming on.
Thank you for having me.